are we ready to talk about my favorite books of 2024? We are. Let's do it. Hello, book friends. It's Alyssa. Welcome back to the channel. Hello, if you are new. Happy New Year. And let's do another year-end roundup fun time video. I did 23 favorites from 23 last year. We're going to do 24 this year. I don't think we're going to keep going with this for too long because that gets a little out of control at some point. But it's really hard for me to narrow this down to like a top 10. I read a lot of books, but I have a list for you. I'm going to try to make this quick. This year I decided to split my favorites into fiction and nonfiction. So look out for a nonfiction video. There will be fewer books on my nonfiction favorites list, but I felt like there were enough of them that they needed their own space. So we're doing that this year. I own most of my fiction books for this list, but there are a few that I don't, so I'll pop them up somewhere on the screen when we get to them. Yeah, without further ado, I'm going to kind of go through these quickly. Some of these have reviews already on the channel. Where they do, I will make note of it. If they don't, let me know if you want a more robust review of them. And I can certainly add that to my list of things to do. Enough rambling, let's go. This is really a stand-in for an entire series that I've been reading and I'm still going to be reading in 2025, and that is The Realm of the Elderling. I am 2 series into a 5-series world. I am book 1 in series 3, so this is Assassin's Apprentice. It's the first in this whole world, and I really love this series. Thank you, Roger, for pushing me to read this, and thank you to all of my friends who've been reading this along with me. It's been a really fun, very lengthy buddy read. We have buddy reads set up, a bunch of us on Storygraph, and we're all somewhere else in the realm of the Elderling, so it's nice to see everybody's comments as we go through. I'm definitely kind of in the middle, so I have a lot to go in 2025, but maybe I can wrap up this series. We'll see. Fantasy, don't know how to describe it. Dragons, it's a little bit more literary. It's sad. Robin Hobb likes to break your heart a lot. A lot of animals die, so if you can't do that, don't read this. It's gonna hurt you, but I love it. I love how it's written. It's so good. So yes, thank you, Roger. You were right. I do like Robin Hobb. You've only been telling me that for a very long time. I've talked about this about 1,000 times. This was a Patreon pick. This is Against the Loveless World by Susan Abu Hawa. She's a Palestinian author. This story is phenomenal. It's heartbreaking. It is bittersweet at the end. I think it's a perfect book to read now. It was a perfect book to read when it was written, and it's probably going to be timely for quite some time. I had to take this slowly because it's just... there's so much, like, you want to consume it quickly, but I had to force myself to slow down and really simmer in this one. Loved this. It's about essentially like what makes you a terrorist, because one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. And oh, it's such a good book. Please read this. If you haven't, just pick it up already. Have I not talked about it enough? Leonora Carrington. This is the year that introduced me to this wonderful surrealist painter and writer. And I have replaced my copy. For the keen-eyed amongst you who also follow me on Instagram, you can see that this copy is intact. I did not go back in time. I have been slowly replacing the copies I bought of her The Hearing Trumpet and her memoir, because Mercy ate them. But anyway, this is a surrealist novel about this little lady who gets sent to this nursing home that's very strange, and strange things happen, and it's feminist and takes on religion a little bit, and it's bizarre, and I really enjoyed this. I took it in little chunks and just savored little bits of it. I have a review on the channel. I'll try to remember to link it. If you've never tried Leonora Carrington, pick this up. I have her a short story collection. I think it's all of her short stories, but I'll have to double check. And I have her memoir, again, now being kept very far away from Mercy, who seems to want to massacre all Leonora Carringtons, because I really want to get to the memoir in 2025. She's just fascinating life, very fascinating life. And I finally got to see one of her paintings in real life when we went to the MoMA for my birthday this year. So I want to know where there's more Leonora Carringtons. I need to go see more of them. her art's stunning. Every time I say I'm going to make something quick, it's not. Percival Everett James. Do I need to say any more about this? I don't. I'm a little sad it didn't win the Booker. Actually, I'm a lot sad it didn't win the Booker because I can't believe they picked Snorbuttle, but okay, fine, you picked the least offensive book that you could. Not that any of these books were offensive, but I don't know, it felt like a stupid pick, but that's not the point. James, fantastic. It's a retelling of Huck Finn from Jim's perspective. It is moving, it is wonderful. I love Percival Everett. If you somehow haven't read this yet this year, what have you been doing with your life? This is my first one I don't have a hard copy of, and that is Poor Dear by Claire Oshetsky. This is a slim, fantastic novel about how one small mistake or choice in your childhood can haunt you forever. And I just love the way Claire Oshetsky writes stories. Chouette was also phenomenal. I read that last year or maybe the year before. And this, I could not put it down. This girl is haunted by her past, and she's trying to tell us her past and what really happened that day with her friend. And every time she kind of almost gets to telling the truth, she twists and doesn't quite get to the ending. And Poor Dear, who's this kind of deer that's on her back, that's stalking her, that's her guilt, that's her conscience, that's trying to make her confess, comes in and tells her, no, you know you're lying, tell the truth. It's brilliant. I love it. Please read it if you didn't last year. Such a good book. In 2024, I read my first Barbara Pym, and there will be more Pyms in the future, so watch out. And that was Excellent Women. I have a review for this on the channel. I really loved this. If you like Jane Austen, I think you're going to enjoy reading Pym, because she just, her ability to create dialogue and fantastic characters is just, it's superb. I think there was a New York Times reviewer who dubbed her like the best author you've never heard of or something crazy like that. She's not very well known. I think in the US, I find it very difficult to find used copies of her books. So when I do find them, I just snag them up. It may be easier in the UK. I'm not sure. My UK viewers will have to let me know on that one. But she captures, British life post-war really well. Excellent Women was a fantastic place to start. I have a couple more now, so I will jump into a few others. She even got nominated for a Booker for one of them. I think it's Quartet in Autumn, so maybe I'll go do that. There are 2 horror books that I read this year that I don't own that were phenomenal. The first I'm going to talk about is American Rapture by C.J. Lead. I loved Maeve Fly, and I think that was on last year's list. And this I also loved. I read it really early. I had a very early arc of it, and I couldn't stop. We're in like a zombie apocalypse, like a plague, COVID-y quarantine situation. Our main character is this girl who's being raised in an incredibly devout Catholic home. She's very isolated from anything secular, and then this outbreak happens, and she is forced into the secular world, and the secular world is also filled with like zombies now, and it is such a great horror novel, but also a great discussion of religion and guilt and how religious trauma affects us. I loved this. I love CJ. I think she's fantastic. A brilliant voice, new voice in horror. And I just, what's she going to write next? I don't know, but I'm going to read it and I'm probably going to love it. So that was American Rapture by CJ Lead. And then the other one I read is Mary by Nat Cassidy. And my only negative to this book is that I wish it was written by a woman, because this is about a menopausal woman who just kind of loses it. And honestly, I feel like the way that Nat Cassidy captured this, he captured the rage, he captured the way you feel like you don't have control over your body. He captures perfectly how doctors and lots of professionals, like medical professionals and other people in your life, kind of dismiss what's going on with you. It's amazing. I just wish a woman had written it, because I feel like it would be like night bitch level female rage. I love it. Please read it. It's really good. It's just so good. It's such a good horror novel. If you need something for October, pick it up, please. Another book I don't own, sadly, and I do need to get my hands on it, is Dayspring by Anthony Oliveira. And I would recommend that when you read this, that you read this along with the audio and fully immerse into it, because the audio for this is so good. It's multiple voices. This is the story of Jesus and one of his disciples who is his lover, and it is so good. It is brilliant. I don't even know how to tell you how much I loved this. I can't remember if I did a video on this or not. I think I just did a Substack post on it and talked about it on my Substack. But there's a really great interview that Anthony Oliveira does talking about this book. I'm going to link it down below. It's so good. He plays with form. He plays with, in the audiobook, they play with these multiple voices. Like the devil is this many-voiced thing. It is such a good book. And I don't hear enough people talking about it. And I think that's disappointing. I just go read, please, 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 please read this. Please. I'm going to beg you. This is just a video where I beg you to read the books I love. Please read Dayspring if you haven't already, for the love of all. I want to say that is holy. I guess that makes sense. Anyway, I know I have a review for this already on the channel, and that is A Good Life by Virginie Grimaldi. This is the story of two sisters. They've been estranged. They have to come back together. They reminisce about their childhood. They have to confront some things, and it's just a beautiful story about siblings. It has a sad ending, but I didn't mind. Like, it's so, if you have a sibling, please read this book, because you have these complex relationships with your siblings, right? It's filled with love and tension and shared history and events that nobody else will ever have with you. And I think this beautifully captures that. I only have a brother. If I had a sister, I think that somehow this would have even hit me harder. But I finished this at 5 a.m. and wanted to immediately message him and just be like, I love you, bro. And he would have thought I was about to jump off a cliff or something, because why am I messaging him that at 5 a.m? But anyway, please read this. Such a good book. And thank you to Europa again for sending me this, because Europa, you sent me books. So good. Was that 10? I think we're at 10. 11 is Foster Dade Explores the Cosmos by Nash Jenkins. I talked about this, I think, a bunch in my Substack. Really loved this. I think this is perfect for if you liked The Secret History and you're kind of a millennial, you went to college or were in high school around the time of 2005, 2000, the early 2000s. I think you will find this very nostalgic. If you went to prep school in the Northeast during that time, it's going to be even more nostalgic for you. I'm sure you will look at some of these characters and you're going to say, I know that kid. I absolutely love this. Thank you again to Aurora Reads for discussing this and putting this on my radar. I wouldn't have read it otherwise. It's brilliantly written. I love the way it's written. The language is just phenomenal. The characters are beautifully rendered. Everything feels very real. It's a story of Foster Dade. He is a kid going to this prep school in New Jersey. He's kind of in the Princeton area, and something happens to him. The narrator is a kid who's at this prep school years later, and he happens to be in Foster Dade's room, and he starts to attempt to unravel the mystery around Foster Dade and what happened to him and why Foster Dade kind of falls off the face of the earth in some ways. It's really good. It talks about the things that happen to you in your youth, drug use, peer pressure, fitting in, money, status, finding your sexuality, all that fun stuff. I absolutely love this book. 12 and 13 are a bit of a cheat because I was going to do these together and I said, no, they need to stand on their own. So 12 and 13 are Agua Viva and Year to the Wild Heart by Clarice Lispector. I couldn't pick one over the other, and I don't think that they need to be together. I think that they need to stand on their own. Agua Viva is super short and was a like a fever dream for me. I don't know how to describe Agua Viva. It's an experience, and it's an experience that I need to do over and over again. I mean, I have annotated the heck out of this. There are so many repetitions. You feel like you're kind of stuck in Clarice's brain as she tries to like tease out the ideas that she puts into her novels, and it's like you're sitting in there while the genius, while the wizard behind the curtain is tinkering and moving things around and trying to, you know, make everything happen on the outside. The back calls it an unordered meditation on the nature of life and time. I mean, like, it is that, but it's you can feel her struggle to fully articulate all the big ideas she has inside of her. And I really liked that I read this sort of on the heels of Nearer to the Wild Heart, where our protagonist is a person who is filled with big ideas and wants to get them out. And this was her first novel. She was super young when she wrote it. Absolutely adored this. We did talk about this on the podcast, which I'll link below, and I also have a separate review for it, so I'm not going to go into a ton of stuff. But if you've never read Clarice Lispector, please give her a try. I absolutely adore her. She does something to my brain while I'm reading her, and I don't know how to describe it. She's like, her writing is like a drug. It's just like a drug. I don't know. It makes my brain light up. I think if you put me in a PET scan, I would just be like the 4th of freaking July in there. If you had me reading this while in a PET scan, please just read them. We will be reading The Passion According to GH with the TBR Lowdown like book club, my podcast this year, 2025. So keep your eye out for that. There will be more Lispector coming. There will always be more Lispector. And when I'm done, I'll just read them again. So there we go. 12 and 13. 14 is a surprise. I didn't really think that I would like this as much as I did. Cool cover, sounded like, yeah, it's like up my alley, whatever. Yeah, sure. I'll get it from the publishers. Please Stop Trying to Leave Me by Alana Saab was such a surprise for me. This is about a woman who is working through her like issues with the relationship. She's dating a woman. She wants to break up with her. A lot of the book is about is her talking to her therapist, and the other part is her writing her stories. She's trying to write a book, but she can't finish the book, and she's got things in her past that she's trying to work through it, and she's working through those with her therapist, but she's also spinning these stories, but she's also talking about her relationship with her girlfriend, and it's not going to be for everybody, I don't think, because of the way it is structured. The fact that there's no quotation marks is going to knock some people off this list. But I loved it. I don't know. It did something to me. I connected with it. I loved it so much. Banging cover. It's so good. If you liked My Year of Rest and Relaxation, read this. If you wanted to like My Year of Rest and Relaxation, but something like, I don't know, the ending didn't jive with you, please try this. This, so good. I've seen this on a couple people's, like, this was a surprise favorite. 15. I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. Short, little dystopian novel about these women that are in a cage underground. One of them happens to be a young girl. They don't know how they got there. They've kind of always been there. The young girl has never existed in anything other than this cage. One day they get out of this cage, they escape, and they're in this world, this strange world, and they're the only people alive. And what do? It is so good. So good. Please read this. I need to read it again, honestly. It is phenomenal. We did talk about this over on the podcast. This was a TBR Lowdown book club pick from 2024. So I will, again, try to link as many videos as I can down below. Short, quick, impactful. Read it, please. It's So good. I had to put the Safekeep by Yolle van der Woden on here because I think about this book a lot. I was so surprised by how much I liked this and just how approachable it was for a Booker book. Like it was, and how out of left field. Like I don't know where this book came from, but I loved it. I have a review, obviously. I'll link it down below, like I keep saying, but it's so freaking good. So good. And I could have seen this winning the Booker. I don't, like, if James hadn't been on the list, I would have had this win. But it's steamy. It's moving. It's so good. 17, There Are Rivers in the Sky by Elif Shafak. This is my second Elif Shafak. I read The Island of Missing Trees, and I did really enjoy that. And this also did not disappoint. This is 3 different POVs. We're following a man in like Victorian times, and he is an archaeologist. We are following a young woman in London, and we are following a young woman who is in Turkey, and they all intertwine. They all are connected by water and rivers, and it is just such a good, it's so freaking good. And I don't know how this wasn't longlisted for the Booker, in all honesty, because it's how it's so freaking good. There's so many really lovely interviews and discussions that Elif Shafak has done with like the British Museum and other places, particularly around this book. There's a great one with her and Mary Beard, if you want to check that out. I loved this. I loved how it linked everybody together. I loved how it opened my eyes to things that I didn't know before. I went down a whole rabbit hole of learning about cuneiform, and it's, please read this book. It's so good. The begging continues. This is just a sweet book that I do think about a lot, and I really would like somebody to make into a movie or TV show, something, and that is The Girls by John Bowen. This beautiful McNally edition that just looks like something out of Masterpiece Mystery, should be on Masterpiece Mystery. It's set in the 70s, and Janet and Susan live in this little village in the Cotswolds. They are known as the Girls. They are together. They are roommates, and they have like a little break. They've been together for years and years and years and years and years. They go on a brief break, and Janet ends up having an affair with a man and gets pregnant, and they decide to, Janet and Susan, raise the baby together. And things occur. A murder happens. It's got just the best sort of Midsummer Murder sort of meets black comedy, dark comedy vibes. I really just enjoyed this. I look forward to reading it again, actually, because it's just so lovely. It's funny. It's dark. You root for the girls to get away with the murder they commit. It was such a good time, and I'm so grateful to my friends that have turned me on to McNally. I've read a couple McNallys now. There's 2 on this list, and I love this one. This, I think, is like one of my favorites that I read this year, and I will be reading more. Great small pub. Check out their catalog, but definitely check out this one if you want just like a nice read, just something nice. Number 19. These are in no particular order if you haven't figured out. I just pick things that I really liked. In no particular order, number 19 is Rejection by Tony Tula. I'm not going any further because I feel like I butcher this man's name every time I try to say it, but I loved Rejection. It is interconnected short stories all about people being rejected in different ways. You've got incels, you've got finance bros, you've got the most insufferable people you've ever met, and you cringe and you're embarrassed and you're blushing and you're laughing and you're seeing some people in your life perhaps that you know, and it's just such a of the moment book. I feel like it very much captures like the zeitgeist in a way. It is so good. If you haven't read it, it's going to be popping up on a bunch of people's lists, at least a lot of the people that I am friends with that are fellow booktubers. I think that they're going to see this popping up on their lists because it blew a lot of us away. And then I was kindly gifted his first novel as a Secret Santa gift from one of my fellow book friends. Thank you. And I can't wait to read that as well. And I will be a Tony Tula fan, I think, for a while. Please read this. So good. Number 20, we're coming in on the end here. Number 20 is The Echoes by Evie Wyld. I had an arc of this. It comes out in February. It's already out, I think, in the UK and in Australia. And it's a story of ghosts. It's a story of generational trauma. It weaves between past and present and between our ghost narrator. And it blew me away. It was so freaking good. The way that Evie Wyld rolls out this story and just very slowly tells you what the hell happened in this woman's past to make her never want to go back to Australia, to make her not want to introduce her boyfriend to her parents, that made her sort of estranged from her sister. Like, it is so beautifully executed. It's so good. There's so many just, your ghost narrator is going to hit you in the feels like so much. It is such when it comes out in February, please pick yourself up a copy if you don't live somewhere where it's already out or you don't want to go to Blackwell's and buy it, because it was excellent. I loved this book. Number 21 is Liars by Sarah Manguso. I really liked Very Cold People. I need to read her other book, which I always forget the name of, where like there's the girl floating. And I absolutely loved this. This was just very relatable to me. For anybody who was in a relationship that you should have seen all the red flags, or you did and you talked yourself out of seeing them, this is the story for you. This book is so good. You have this artist who marries this man. She meets him at a retreat, like an artist retreat, marries this man. She ends up having success and he doesn't, but she ends up sacrificing her success to kind of follow him around through all of these entrepreneurial things that he's trying to do. They have a child together, and eventually you find out that he is lying about a lot of things. Their relationship is just, this man is so horrible. I just personally really enjoyed this book. I could not stop reading it. John, the husband, is just, he's the worst. Like, he really is quite truly the worst. He doesn't let her, anytime she has any amount of success, he finds a way to undermine it. He basically leaves her to do everything. He is just a horrible, horrible person. And it's, I had such like a visceral, emotional time reading this. And yeah, I had to put it on this list just because personally this was such a good book for me. I loved it. 22 is actually a reread, and that was The Little Friend by Donna Tartt. And by reread, I mean that I DNF'd this the first time I read it. And I'm rereading. I reread it and I really loved this book. I'm glad that I gave it a second chance. I'm glad that I spent time with it. This was not something that I could just like listen to while I drove. This was a book I really needed to spend time with. And it's not the book that they sell you on the cover or on the dust flap or whatever. The summary of this book makes this sound like it's going to be some sort of mystery that is being solved by this plucky young girl. And while that is a piece of this plot, the plot is it's a very loosely plot-driven story. It's much more of a character-driven story with a very loose plot. While it's part of it, it isn't the story. It's the story about like a crumbling town in the South. It's the story of families. It's the story of racial and class conflict. It is so good. It is so different than The Secret History. And I think it's more in the vein of The Goldfinch in terms of how she was writing. I'm just glad I gave this a second chance. I really, really, really loved this book. Please, if you tried this, give this another chance. And be open to what it is not, and it is not what they tell you it is on the dust jacket. And she still follows her. I feel like one of the signatures of Donna Tartt is that you kind of have this slowly building story that when you get maybe with like 2/3 of the way through, it starts to ramp up and ramp up and ramp up and ramp up and ramp up, and it becomes a bit chaotic and frenetic, and you get to the end, you need to know what's going to happen, and this has that kind of plot. There's like so many things that are coming together, so many plot lines, so many characters, so many choices, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. Katie, I loved it. I know this is Katie's favorite Donna Tartt, I believe. And I don't know if it's my favorite because I haven't reread The Goldfinch. I meant to do that in 2024. I did not get to it, but it's definitely a contender for favorite. 23 is the other McNally on this list, and that is The Ex-Wife by Ursula Parrot. This is the first McNally I read. I read this because of Kieran over on Kieran the Reader. Thank you, girl, for talking about this, because this is right up my alley. I loved this book. This is set in the 20s. It is somewhat autobiographical. It is autofiction, if you will, about Ursula Parrot, about a woman who is married. They are very hedonistic when they're married. The marriage doesn't go very well. They get divorced. And you watch the ex-wife be the ex-wife, and what does that mean? How does that shape her life? She gets a job. She, builds an existence without a man. You get to see the 1920s and why that hedonism exists, following World War I, and the sadness and the loss that they're trying to cover up with all of this hedonism and the drinking and the partying and the just being a bright young thing. And I just enjoyed this. This was a good time. This was fun. Definitely need to read Ursula Parrot's biography, because she sounds like a very interesting person. So, and then finally I have a book that for some reason I've never done a review of it on this channel. I don't know why. I meant to about 1,000 times, and I just never got around to like putting all my thoughts together for some reason. So let's talk about it now a little bit briefly. And that is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. You knew this was kind of going to be on here, right? Like this had to be somewhere right at the end. I don't know if I really need to talk to you too much about this. I'm sure this is going to be on some lists from a bunch of people, but I really love this. I think this is like second to Normal People for me. I really just love Normal People because it was my gateway Rooney. So like it has sentimental almost points that, but I love this. It's two brothers. Their father has died. They're grieving. They both have relationships that are inappropriate, kind of like romantic relationships in some way. But are they really inappropriate? You see discussions of feminism, incels, class, grieving, a lot of grieving, and family dynamics, and being an outsider in different ways. Also obviously has a lot to do with chess. And I really, really, really loved this. I like the way Sally Rooney writes books. I just do. I love her. I will read every book she writes. I really love Beautiful World, Where Are You? And I know that not everybody liked it. I loved her little essays in the middle, her little emails, her little diatribes on whatever she wanted to talk about the world or whatever. I loved those. I loved getting to see her talk about stuff outside of the confines of some book about a relationship. And yeah, Intermezzo was phenomenal. I need to do a reread of all of my Sally Rooney's, and perhaps I will do that when I'm done with my Donna Tartt rereads. But I just, yeah, sue me. I love Sally Rooney. So yeah, those are the 24 books. Let me know if you've read any of these or any of these on your list. what is on your list if you want to share them with me. As I said about 1,000 times, I will try to link whatever reviews I have down below so you can watch those if you want more. If there's anything you want a full review on, again, let me know and I will add it to the list of videos. I have a very long list of videos. I always have a long one at the start of the year. I get a little lull and then I have all these videos right at the end of the year going into the new year. So I am busy, girly. I got lots to film and edit for you, so stay tuned. It's the perfect time to hit that bell and whatnot so you are notified for every little video that comes out, especially in January, because there's a lot of wrapping up we have to do. So I'm going to be quiet now. I'm going to get ready to film my nonfiction, and yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video, whatever it will be, because it's my channel and I can do whatever I want, like talk about nonfiction books separately and love Sally Rooney. That is all.